What's up everybody? Before we get into today's video, I have two quick announcements to share. On October 21st, I'll be co-hosting a meetup game at Final Table with Will from 4Bet Blind and Robinson Tran. We'll be there from 3 to 7 p.m. We're going to be playing some 1-2 no limit hold'em with 2 bomb pots per orbit. It should be a lot of action and a lot of fun. If you want to save your seat, you could call this number. You're also welcome to show up the day of. Will, Robinson, and I are looking forward to see you there. I am also happy to announce I'm now an affiliate with the PokerBros group button clickers. If you don't have access to a poker room or you've been thinking about playing online, I definitely recommend checking it out. They've got all sorts of tournaments, freeze outs, re-entries, PKOs. Check out this one, a 65 buy-in for a guaranteed prize pool of $30,000. That's insane value. They've also got ring games, no limit hold'em, PLO. If you want to join, use the group and referral ID on the screen. Once you sign up, there's instructions on how to contact the admins. Great group, lots of action. I play there as MD Poker. Maybe I'll see you at the tables. I'll throw more information about the meetup game and PokerBros in the description box, so make sure to check it out. Thanks! What's up, you sick mother bluffers? In this one, I'm back at Deuce's for some tournament action. I took down this very tournament the week before, and I'm looking for another deep run tonight. Can I do it? Let's find out. In this first hand, action folds to me and I pick up pocket queens of the low jack. I make it 4x and I get called by the hijack, cutoff, and big blind. We go 4 ways to a flop of 8s, 7, 7, 2 diamonds. Big blind checks. I do lose to 7x, but I don't expect the hijack or cutoff to have many 7s. There are, however, a bunch of draws I should protect against and get value from. I continue for 2,500. The hijack calls before the cutoff goes all in for just under 6,000. Big blind folds. I'm getting too much of a good price to not see a turn in river. I do want to get the hijack out of the hand though, so I decide to 3-bet shove, which does get the hijack to fold. I'm going heads up against the cutoff, and they show ace 7 of spades. Nice catch. Turn is not a queen, the river is not a queen, and they're going to take this one down. In this one, the under the gun player limps before I look down at pocket jacks and under the gun 1. I've got just over 4 big blinds in my stack, so it's an easy shove. Action folds to the big blind who 3-bet shoves. Undergun limper is going to fold. Big blind has got me covered, so I'm all in and at risk. And the flop comes queen 6, 6, and just like that, I'm down to 2 outs. The turn is the jack of spades. Turn is set. It's my opponent who is now down to 2 outs, and the river is a 10. And with this miracle turn, I get a full double up. I was later informed that I hit the case jack as another player had folded a jack. Very fortunate for me, I run my stack back up to 10 bigs. In this one, undergun limps, action folds to the button who raises to 2,500 before I look down at ace-king suited in the big blind. A 3-bet shove, undergun folds, and the button makes the call. They've got pocket 8s. We go heads up to a run out. The flop comes 6-4 queen. I'm going to need some help. The turn is the king of hearts, yes! Will my opponent find a 2-outer on the river? No, but close though, it's a 7. And I get another full double up, back up to starting stack and then some. Let's go. This one action folds to me and I look down at ace-king again in middle position. I open 2.5x. I get called by the low jack and the small blind. We go 3 ways to a flop of 5 deuce queen 2 hearts. Small blind checks to me. This is a pretty dry board on which my opponents will not connect very often. Let's try to take the pot down. I continue for 20,000 and it gets the job done. Nice. In this one, the short stack middle position player is going to open shove for just under 2,000. Action folds to the cutoff who decides to call blind. Okay. Before I look down at king queen suited on the button. I'm going to raise, but with just over 20 bigs in my stack, I'm not sure what sizing to go for. In the end, I go for the most straightforward option and shove, and the cutoff is going to fold. Middle position shows 9-8 of hearts. We're going heads up to a run out, which comes 5, 7, 7, 2 diamonds. My opponent picks up some extra outs as a 6 would give them a straight. I take some of those outs away as the turn comes a queen. They can only win with a 6 now, and the river is a deuce. I bust the middle position player, after which our table breaks. First hand at this new table, my chips are still in the rack. Then I pick up ace-king once again. I open 3x, and the middle position player is going to 3-bet all in for just under 10 bigs. Action folds to me, and I make the call, and they show ace-king as well. We have different suits though, so a flush bad beat is possible. The flop comes 8-8 deuce rainbow, and so a chop is the only possible outcome. Damn it, dealer, where is my content? Turn and river are inconsequential, and we chop. In the forward level, action folds to me, and I look down at 8-7 suited in middle position. I make it 2x, and I get called by the cutoff and big blind. We're going 3 ways to the flop, and you know you're running good when you open 8-7, and the flop comes 3-7-8. The big blind checks. There's some straight and flush draws possible, so I continue for 6,000, and unfortunately, both my opponents fold. Too bad I couldn't get more value. In this one, I'm in under the gun 1, and I pick up ace-10 suited. I make it 2x to go, and both blinds make the call. We go 3 ways to a flop of deuce 7-10, giving me top pair, top kicker. I once again smash the flop. I continue for 5,000, and I find a customer in the big blind who makes the call. The turn comes the king of clubs, and the big blind checks again. At this point in the hand, I've got a stack to pot ratio of less than 1, and unless my opponent has king 10 specifically, I'm confident I have the best hand, so I decide to shove, and the big blind goes deep into the tank. Looks like they could be holding a weaker 10, in which case they could be looking to make the hero call, but eventually they make the fold. I pick up a very nice pot. In this one, a short stacked player is going to open shove for just over 4 big blinds from under the gun before I look down at ace-king suited in the cutoff. I'm sitting on just over 12 bigs, so I have an easy 3-bet shove. Rest of the table folds. Under the gun shows ace-10 offsuit. We're off to a run out. The flop comes 4 jack, jack, 2 hearts, giving my opponent some chop outs and a backdoor flush draw. The turn comes another jack. There will be no flush. My opponent needs a 10 to win, or an ace, jack, or 4 to chop, and the river is an 8. I take down the pot, and with this player busting, we're now moving to the final table. First hand I get involved in at the final table, it folds to me, and I look down at ace-3 suited in the hijack. I open for a min raise, and the big blind is the only player to make the call. We go heads up to a flop of 10-7-9 rainbow, and the big blind checks to me. I could go either way between checking and betting. This time, I decide to continue for 4,000, and the big blind announces call. The turn comes the ace of clubs, perfect. Big blind checks for a second time. I announce 12,000, and they snap fold. In this one, we're 6-handed, and action folds to me in the cutoff. I pick up 9-8 suited. I open for a min raise, and the big blind announces call. We go heads up to a flop of 4 queen deuce, 2 clubs, 1 diamond. Big blind checks. With 9 high and some potential backdoor straight and flush draws, I decide to c-bet 4,000, and the big blind folds ace-7 suited face up. Nice to get this one through. Taking a quick look at the prize pool, 4 players are getting paid tonight, with 480 going to first. In this one, we're 5-handed, and we decided to take 10 bucks out of each paid spot to pay the bubble 40 bucks, so we're now in the money. That's 2 cashes back to back. Let's go. I'm looking for back-to-back wins though, so let's continue chipping up. In this one, action folds to me on the button, and I look down at pocket deuces. With just under 10 bigs in my stack, I've got an easy shove, and I get it through. The very next shuffle, action folds to the small blind who completes. I look down at king 9 in the big blind. I don't think the small blind is just calling with a hand that beats king 9, so I put them to the test and go all in, and they make the fold. A few hands later, the cutoff limps, before I look down at king queen offsuit on the button. Time to pick up that dead money. I shove, and everybody folds. In this one, there's a limp from under the gun. Action folds to me in the big blind, and I look down at king 7 suited, which is probably good enough to put pressure on my opponent by shoving, but I can also check and see a flop for free. That's the option I go for. We go heads up to a flop of ace 5-3 2 hearts. I flop the nut flush draw. I check to the undergun player who leads out for 8,000, and I have a couple of options here. I can raise and either take down the pot or set up a turn shove as a semi bluff. I can also call and not risk getting blown off my equity, and my opponent decides to 3-bet all in if I raise. I end up making the call. The turn is interesting. It comes the king of diamonds, giving me second pair on top of the nut flush draw. I check for a second time. My opponent bets again for 8,000, a super small sizing. I'm not really sure what to make of this bet. If my opponent was bluffing, I think they would be sizing up to put pressure on me. I could see them betting small like this with the draw to try and set their own price to see the river, but since I've got a flush draw myself, I don't think that's what's going on here. I think what's happening is they have a medium strength ace, maybe a suited ace, and having no history with this player, I'm not sure I can get them to fold an ace if I shove. For that reason, I decide to once again just call and hope I can improve on the river. And the river comes, the 9 of spades, so I don't improve. I check for a third time, and this time my opponent checks back, and they show King 8 suited. For a second, I'm happy to see we're chopping, until I realize that their 8th kicker is going to play, and they're going to take this pot down. A couple of hands later, the under the gun player is going to open for 3.5 bigs. Before I look down at ace-king on the button, I'm going to isolate and 3-bet all in. Both blinds make the fold, and under the gun shows pocket 8s. We're going heads up to a run out. The flop comes 9-7 jack 2 spades. My opponent is still ahead. The turn comes a king. I take the lead, and if I hold, this player will bust and will move one spot up in the payouts. They're going to need an 8 or a 10, and the river comes a 10. No! They river a straight, and not only is this player going to stick around a bit longer, I'm left with crumbs, and I'm now the shortest stack at the table. A few hands later, action folds to the small blind and completes. I started the hand with barely 3 bigs, so when I look down at king 3, I decide to go for it and shove. My opponent snap calls, and they show pocket 5s. We're going heads up to a run out. I'm all in and at risk. I ask for my one time, and the flop comes jack, king, jack. Yes! My opponent is now down to 2 outs. The turn comes another king, giving me a boat and the win. The river is inconsequential, but just for the lols, it's the case king. I make quads. How do you like them apples? Take down the pot and on to the next one. A couple of hands later, I'm under the gun and I'm down at king 5 suited. Blinds just went up, so I'm back down just under 4 bigs. I have an automatic shove. Action folds to the button, who announces all in. Blinds get out of the way, and the button shows queen jack suited. Probably the best I could hope for in this spot. I'm all in and at risk as we go heads up to the flop, which comes ace queen 8, which is kind of good, kind of bad. My opponent takes the lead by pairing up their queen, but I do flop the second nut flush draw. And the turn comes the 6 of diamonds. I make the flush and automatically win the hand. The poker gods give my opponent 2 pair on the river just to fuck with them. Haha, good one, poker gods. Very next shuffle, action folds to the small blind, who once again completes off of a 4 big blind stack. I look down at king jack suited in the big blind and shove. This has been a recurring dynamic between myself and this player, and I can sense some frustration as they snap call with queen 7 offsuit.
You gave up on life, didn't you?
We're heads up and going to a run out, which comes king deuce 9. I flop top pair. Turn comes an 8, and it's all over for my opponent. River comes a 5. I take down the pot. They're out in 5th, and we're now going to 4-handed play. I'm 1 step closer to first place. And this one action folds to me, and I look down at ace 8 suited on the button. I could probably just shove, but I do think I have a slight edge on the other players, and I want to minimize variance as much as possible, so I go for a min raise instead. Small blind folds, and the big blind goes into the tank, counts their stack before making the call. We go heads up to a flop, which comes 9-8 deuce, on which my opponent donk jams for 41,000, about half my stack. They could have flopped a 9, but I'm smelling bullshit here, and I think my second pair is good. After thinking for a little bit, I decide to make the call. My opponent shows king 10 offsuit. Got him. We're going to the turn, which comes a queen, giving my opponent some extra outs. If I can dodge a king, jack, or 10, I will take down this pot, knock out my opponent, and be 1 step. I'm so sorry. Damn it. That's the second time my opponent gets saved on the river, and instead of being heads up with a massive stack, we're still 4-handed, and I'm back down to 4 big blinds. Brutal. Literally the very next shuffle, I look down at pocket 10s from under the gun. I shove, and the button snippety snaps. Blinds get out of the way, and under the gun shows pocket 5s. Nice. Let's hold. I'm once again all in and at risk, going to the flop, which comes a safe looking 6 king king. Turn is a 4, and the river is a king. I hold, and I get a much needed double up. The very next hand, action folds to the small blind, who open shoves for 3 big blinds before I look down at king 9 offsuit in the big blind. That's a call, and I'm ecstatic to see I have my opponent completely dominated. They got king 3 suited. We're going heads up to a run out, which comes 7-7 deuce with only 1 diamond. The turn comes a 10. My opponent is down to a 3 to survive. This run out does open some opportunities for them if the river comes a 10 or higher though, and the river comes. I'm so sorry. For the second time, I had this opponent on the ropes and about to bust, but they get saved on the river. It was smooth sailing up to 5-handed play, but now I'm hitting a bunch of rough spots. I'm not discouraged though. A win is still in my grasp, and I do have every intention of taking this tournament down. A few hands later, I'm in under the gun and I look down at... Ah, shit, my battery died. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I look down at ace-king offsuit, I open jam, and the short stack big blind with whom I chopped the previous hand decides to go for it with 9-7 suited. Thankfully, another player at the table started filming with their phone just in time to capture me getting fucked on the flop, which comes 8-9-10, the turn is a 4, and the river is a 5. And this is now the third time that this player survives busting against me, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting a little pissed. An orbit later, I'm in undergun and I look down at ace-king again. This is crazy. This is the 7th time I pick up ace-king tonight. It would be nice if it could fucking hold though. I open jam and everyone folds. I guess I hold this time. The very next shuffle, undergun player open shoves. Action folds to me and I look down at ace-10 in the big blind. This player has not been doing a whole lot of raising, let alone shoving. So I don't love the spot, but four-handed and with 7 bigs, I don't think folding is ever an option. I make the call. My opponent shows ace jack. Fuck me. We're off to the run out. The flop comes jack 10 6, all diamonds. The river is a 5. I need a 10 and only a 10 to survive, and the river comes a 6, and I'm out. I ended up taking 4th for $110 minus the buy-in and a $10 tip to the dealers. That's a profit of $60. Obviously super disappointed at how things played out once we made the money. I did run pretty good to make it up to this point though, so all in all, I can't be too upset. Would have loved to book back-to-back wins, but ultimately I'll have to settle for back-to-back cashes. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck at the tables, and I'll catch you in the next one.